All right. What's going on, everybody? We got some people showing up. We're going to give folks a little bit of time to roll in and get this thing populated. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and say this now, and I'll probably end up saying it again. If probably all of you are here for hopefully to learn some about turkey calling, and two, we're giving away a lot of cool stuff. And so the way the giveaways are going to work is at the end of this thing in the chat, they're going to post the link. We're going to do multiple giveaways, and when they post those links, you click on them, and it'll take you to a different web page. You fill everything out, and you enter to win. You will be notified via email whether or not you win, so you won't have to wonder anything like that. Also, your cameras and microphones are completely turned off, so don't worry about any of that. If you want to participate any at all, you can talk through the chat amongst one another. But if you have any questions, because of the subject matter, this being turkey yelping and calling in turkeys and how to and all that stuff, we're going to leave ample time for questions on this thing. And so if you want to ask a question, there's a separate box. You'll see it down at the bottom. It says Q&A. So try to submit all your questions in Q&A, and for just all your talking back and forth, there's the chat box. But there's already 1,400 people in there, and that's pretty cool. So I still, because it's just getting started, I don't want to dive off into it real quick. Yes, Pat, I'm sorry. Thank you for asking me that. This is being recorded, and so if there's anything that we touch on, or if someone jumps in here later and they miss it, this will be uploaded and available on the onX website. So yes, don't worry about trying to take notes or screen record. This will be fully available after tonight. So um, let's do this while we're still giving folks to get in, because there's steadily folks rolling in here. Jordan, you turkey hunted this morning, correct?
I did. I did. In Mississippi. So,
Who are you with?
Mr. Brent Reeves from the Meat Eater crew and this Country Life podcast, and helps out with Clay Newcomb on the Bear Grease podcast a lot, and became pretty good buddies with that old feller. He's a pretty good guy.
How many turkeys did you hear?
One way off, and couldn't. We started this morning in one of the prettiest river bottoms you've ever seen, and had probably can see. Oh man, that's a wide open river bottom. That's
Yeah.
75, 80 to 100-year old hardwood, just beautiful bottom, and stood in a spot where I know I could probably hear a turkey gobble within a half mile of all the way around us, and it was all silence.
Yeah.
And we just made a big loop and found one gobbler track about a mile and a half deep around our loop, and decided the turkeys have vacated the bottom. And went to a new place. It's an 80-acre parcel we have, small track, and it's got good habitat there. And it's a bean field, and I went up there and checked the field, and it ended up being three hens out in the field. And we were able to sneak up there and get set up without them ever knowing we were there, and just sat there and listen for a while and yelp with them. And they actually came up to like within 5 yards of us, and we actually ended up hearing a turkey way off on the other side of the place. And by the time the hens left, we made a loop around there to try to raise him, and he never would negotiate with us anymore. So that's how the day went.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't win every day. So we've got, yeah, there's plenty enough people in here at 6:34. Let's go ahead and get rolling. So everybody, my name is Lake. I work for onX Hunt. This is Jordan Blissett. Jordan and I worked together at Primos for 6 years. So wasn't that right? 6 years.
Yeah,
Um,
close to it.
I'm trying to. I got a notification that my mic's a little bit low. Let me try to. Is that any better? Can you hear me any better? Does it sound about the same? Um, so, and then case in point, just so everybody watching is aware, uh, obviously talking about turkey calling, we're going to do a little bit of yelping and clucking and everything. So we were having some issues. The mic, for some reason, wanted to cut the calls out, so you could see us yelping or something, but there was no sound. But we think we have it fixed. However, if we make it to a point in this conversation where we're calling and y'all don't hear anything, like let us know in the chat or something, and we'll try to get it fixed. But anyhow, um, I'm Lake, work with onX. This is Jordan. Jordan and I worked together at Primos for 6 years, and we still hunt together all the time. You and I hunted together last week. And so through that time, I would not ever go as far as suggesting that Jordan and I are anything special as far as knowledge base goes in the turkey woods, but we have gotten to go an awful lot. I've had the privilege to spend a lot of time around a lot of really good turkey hunters, and I try to be a sponge when I'm around guys like that, guys like Bob Walker or Dave Owens, or just guys that I can. Will Primo's just really good turkey hunters, and uh, so anyhow, we're gonna dive right into it. We're gonna start off talking just briefly, shortly, because there may be all levels across here joining this thing, but we're gonna spend a little bit of time talking about the actual calls that are available to use, and then we're gonna get more into the nuances of calling turkeys in. But as far as basics, just from the bottom up, there's the different types of turkey calls. The first one, probably the one you probably see used the most, is called a diaphragm call or a mouth call. They look like this. This is, I mean, I would consider this to be one of the more popular types that you see people use. After your mouth calls, you've got friction based calls, they're often referred to. That can be in the form of some people call it a pot and peg, some people call them slate calls. And then you've got your box call, which is not, it's actually still in my vest sitting right here, but I would imagine everyone knows what a box call looks like. But basically, well, and then locator calls as well. Um, but I've talked to very few people that stick to one version of a call. I don't talk to many people that are like, I only use a pot and peg call all the time. Most turkey hunters that I know and run into, they use a little bit of everything, and there's different use cases for them. There's different situations where they work better than others. But those are kind of the basics of the types of turkey calls that are available. And so now what we'll get into is kind of different situations and different types of vocalizations of the turkey. Um, and so I think, and I'm going to do most of it on a slate or a mouth call, but well, I'll ask you, Jordan, if you were left with, if you had to stick to a single vocalization, like if you could only have one vocalization of a hen turkey to use, what would it be?
100% just a simple yelp.
Just plain yelp.
Just a plain yelp. That's probably the most effective tool in the woods in my book, far as something that works the most
Mm-hmm.
consistently.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I've asked that question before, and I've had some people say they would, if they had to pick one, they would just stick with clucks. I can see. I mean, clucks are definitely. I mean, I end up, if I'm turkey hunting, I probably clucking, but I still would have to go with yelps. But um, that gets into it a little bit more. So, like, if you notice, Jordan said a plain yelp or a simple yelp. There are variations of the calls, and that's one thing that you see run into. But I'm going to try to give my best rendition of just a plain yelp of a hen. Um, and So turkeys, just like humans, have inflections when they're calling, and so one thing that I try to focus on, Jordan, I know you do as well, is you don't want to. One thing you want to do is have inflection in your calling. There's excited yelping, there's content yelping, there's plain yelping, there's assembly yelping, there's all these variations across the board that turkeys make, and there's use cases for all of them. However, to your point, Jordan, if I only had to stick with one, it would probably just be the plain yelp, because that's what I hear the turkeys use more often than not. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. I mean, just a simple, contented, like, hey, I'm over here. I hear you. You hear me. Here I am. And I'm just going about my business type conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I get into a hunt, I love getting excited because a lot of times that usually is what gets the gobbler to start coming or, gets him to do what you are trying to get him to do. If you get him excited by you being excited, vice versa. But if I had to choose one, just like if I could never choose another way of calling again, the yelping, just a plain 3 or 4 note yelp, will get the job done. If you can master
Mhm.
that, you can kill turkeys.
Yeah. Um, and so what I'm going to do here, we kind of could take this conversation two different ways. And we could go more into the science of all the different vocalizations of a turkey, or we could lean on, specific use cases and different types of calling for different setups. Um, if y'all want to learn more, like the Q&A box, the chat box is right there. If y'all want to know more about just different vocalizations and what they are, put it in there. We can go back to that. From what I'm looking at in the Q&A so far, um, y'all are looking more for actual hunting scenarios, which I'm completely fine with going in on that. Again, if you want more vocalization stuff, just put it in the chat. That's fine. We can go back to it. But um,
I do
going
see a
into
couple questions in here, Lake, about like learning how to purr or what's the best call for purring.
Gotcha.
Uh, I got an answer for that because I cannot purr. I tried and tried and tried. It was so aggravating to me because Lake could purr good, and I was around these people that could purr good, and I could not do it. Like just physically, my way, whatever way my throat and air comes out, I cannot purr. And so, to answer that question, some people just like it's. I don't think possible to purr. Bob Walker's one of those people. He can purr decently, but he's the same way as me. He can't just like get it mastered. So, another, I guess, way of being those contented noises that would associate as the same as the purr is like a little whine or a little squeal. Like I do that a lot. It kind of takes the place of purring.
Wilbur always called it woo woos.
Yeah, and
So I'll do a purr on mine, and then you do. So what's Jordan's talking about? And not to get off subject, but um, for everybody in this webinar right now, the best thing, hands down, the best thing you can do to become a better turkey caller, and it's going to sound cliche, but I will die on this hill, is listen to actual turkeys. If you get the opportunity to listen to them in the wild while you're out in the woods, but man, there are ample like hours and hours. You can just go to YouTube and type in real hen calling. And so what Jordan's talking about is if you've ever had the opportunity to have hens really close to you, you'll notice all the time they're making these real subtle sounds. Just stuff that if you were 40 yards from them, I don't know if you would hear it, but just real subtle content sounds. But as far as purring goes, I could not do it for the longest time, and it drove me insane. And then I had someone tell me that if you can basically gargle water, then you can figure out how to how to purr on a mouth call. And so, honestly, that's all you're doing is it's the same motion as if you were to gargle water. And so I would drive in my truck without a mouth call in, and I would just sit there and try to get the back of my throat to make that vibration that a purr sounds like. And it took me forever, but you're basically, I think it's, I mean, I am no doctor but I think it's called your uvula back there. But that's what you want to flutter when you're purring. But it's just figuring out how to push the air right past it so it flutters. I don't, but it's, I mean, you're just going, and I don't know if y'all can hear that or not, but it's vibrating in there. But then you just put the call in and you just ever so softly just, but I mean, it took a while to figure out. But I'll say this too: it's not, if you can't purr, it's not gonna break you. Like purring is not the wall between you killing turkeys and not. But it is a nice tool to have for sure. And Jordan, if you want to do those other sounds that you were talking about,
yeah, so this is kind of what my replacement of a soft calling. I mean, all you're wanting to do is make a contented noise when that turkey's starting to get closer, where it's not super loud or aggressive, and he can hear those little soft, just like scratching noises and like just hens being content where they're at. And this is how I replace by not being able to purr. And like Wilbur says, it's a woo woo call. You can hear it, woo.
Yeah. But you will, I mean, you will 100% hear turkeys do that. I mean, hens are always making just these light little sounds. There's another question on here. Um, I heard some they were asking about how to do a bubble cluck, and there is like again variations of calls. I mean, there's your cluck that's more of like an abrupt, like a, but a bubble cluck is it kind of to me a bubble cluck falls into that kind of contented sound. Um, so if I was doing a bubble cluck, put the call in my mouth, and it's I'm I'm sending like the softest short burst of air across the call, like it's um, just real. I mean, extremely subtle, but same kind of deal. Like a bubble cluck is something that I use if a turkey is close, or if they're if I'm just trying to finesse really, because a bubble cluck is a really really soft contented type call. Um, really just want to tackle all these questions because we're getting so many of them. The best diaphragm call for a purr. We'll just go ahead and tackle this right now. The best diaphragm. So the best diaphragm for me, like if I know what call Jordan's blowing right now because I hunt with him all the time. Jordan is blowing a ghost cut. If I blow a ghost cut, I sound like hot garbage. If I blow a reverse combo cut, I sound like hot garbage. Everyone is different. It's based on the way you blow your air and so on and so forth. Um, there are calls that I may could purr really good on, but you couldn't purr on at all, and vice versa. So if you're trying to tackle the mouth calling thing firsthand, the best thing I can tell you to do is I mean, there's a lot of wild cuts out there these days. But and Jordan, tell me if I miss one. Your standards are bat cut, combo cut, reverse combo cut, ghost cut, and then like a split V. Um, Go and find the cheapest versions of those cuts of calls and figure out which one best suits you for making turkey noises, and then one or two of them that suits you, and then you can start getting better calls and figuring out dial in which one works best. But there's no there's no blanket answer for this is going to be the mouth yelper that works best for you. It's just everybody's different.
Yep. And just to kind of piggyback off of that too, to I guess not get in a super detailed conversation about like how air movement and stuff works with blowing mouth calls, but if you can see, this is a ghost cut, so it's a whole cut out of the top reed on this call, and that is where my air blows under that call. When I have this in my mouth, my air is passing between my tongue and underneath this call, and wherever that cut is where the vibration happens that makes the higher pitch yelp. Okay, and so when you're blowing air out of your diaphragm, everybody's tongue shaped different, their mouth shaped different. So your air may be coming down your tongue just slightly left center of this call, or slightly right center, or like me, I blow straight down the center of my tongue. So that's what I use a ghost cut for, because that's where the cut is on the call, and that's where my airflow is. So if your air comes out the left side of your tongue where you blow air out, the bat wing more likely would be where you get your high pitched noises from. That's just a simple method to kind of understand how a mouth call works and where the vibration comes from to get the higher and lows. Because
So
if I put a bat wing in where it's not a cut down the center of the call, all I'm going to get is rasp because I'm not hitting that cut with my airflow.
to kind of explain exactly what you're saying. So this is a bat wing style call, right? I'm gonna put this in. I'm just gonna plain yelp. So if I take this is a combo cut. If I put it in my mouth in the same spot and blow it exactly like I was blowing that bat wing, this is what it sounds like. I mean, it sounds. Did it sound as different to you over the speakers as it did to me? I mean, it. I mean, there's the. I'm not able to get the front end of the Yelp as much as I am with this one as I am with this one, and that's what I mean as far as everyone blows calls differently. It varies, and so you got to just kind of play around with it and figure out what works best for you. Let's see. How to get a stubborn gobbler to come in. Public land, he gobbles, but he won't come in. Hmm. Well, Steve, I'll tell you, there is not a textbook answer I can give you to that. That's like, here's what you got to do, and it'll work every time. I can give you examples of things that have worked for me before, but um, there's nothing in that situation or in anything in turkey hunting that's going to work every time. For stubborn gobbler and public land, pressured bird, whichever, um, a couple things. One, so if you are hunting on public land, or if you're in a lease that gets hunted a lot, think about how you're accessing that bird and where you're yelping at him from. And here's what I mean. So let's say theoretically that this turkey always roosts at the end of this logging road, and you walk to the end of that logging road and you stand there, and he's going to be gobbling right there every time. Well, even if it is a good setup, if you walk out the end of the logging road, get 120 yards from him, sit down and start calling, chances are every other person that's hunted him has set up that exact same way. So, one thing that you can do is go out of your way and approach him from another side. Um, that, again, is that going to always work? No. Has it worked before? Yeah. Uh, Another thing you can do, going back to touching on calling, is um, anyone will tell you like woodsmanship is more important than calling every day of the week. I would agree with that. But there are certain situations where having really realistic calling can be a huge advantage. And so we've all, you don't want to fall into the groove of when you're sitting down to a turkey, you're just going, yow, 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 just hitting him with the same sequence every time. And so that's where setting up on a lot of turkeys. That's where listening to real hens and knowing how to vary your sequences to make different sounds, to throw different sounds at him, to make you sound as much like a real hen as possible. Those are the two things off the top of my head. Jordan, you have anything to add?
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I, I always, it just comes from going a lot, and you may have all the experience in the world. For, I mean, I don't know, but just learning how to read the situation. There's no way to learn that from 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 a Zoom or YouTube. It's all about boots on the ground experience, learning how to read the situation, learning how to read the temperature of that turkey. He may like certain things, and you learn what he likes, and he comes running in, or you set up a different direction, like Lake said, and he's like, well, I know that's not a hunter. Who comes running in that way? Who knows? But or it may be one of those deals you yelp 3 times and shut up for 30 minutes, and he comes sneaking in. So you don't ever know unless you're right there having the experience with you. So
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to keep going down these questions because if we don't get on them now, there's no way we're going to touch all of them, and there's a lot of good ones. Um, there's another high pressure one. How important is it to be able to perform all the nuances of different turkey calls, especially during the spring? I'm assuming he's talking about vocalizations and not different types of calls, but I mean, I would say it's very important. Again, can you kill turkeys with just plain yelps? Absolutely, you can. But it's one of those things, especially speaking from turkey hunting down here, where people are hunting a lot. Even if you're hunting on private land, you're typically dealing with birds that have been hunted by other people, and just being able to do all the different vocalizations, maybe it's not the most giant advantage in the world, but it is an advantage. And so that's what, to me, I've said this before, turkey hunting is putting all these tiny little successes in your favor to make it finally come to the grand finale of getting that gobbler in gun range. And so I would say it is very important to be able to do all the different sounds. Jordan.
yeah, I think one of the biggest things that came to my mind when you said that was like early season turkeys when you're hunting, more flocked up turkeys, like bigger groups, being able to make a lot of the different vocalizations they do sometimes creates what we call a flock excitement, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
actually think another flock of turkeys is there, and it tends to it can bring the whole flock towards you rather than just trying to pull the gobbler off. When they're flocked up, you want to call the hens to you. Totally different scenario than calling to a gobbler by itself, you know.
Yeah.
And I think being able to make all those different scenarios, want to paint a picture in the turkey's mind, like what's going on over there, not just a turkey yelping. Like you want to make all the soft calls, excited calls. If he answers you, get excited right back at him. Kind of paint the picture to him, like, hey, she's lonely and wants to meet, or whether. And then if it's a flock of turkeys, you know, you want to paint the picture. Well, there's another flock of turkeys over there scratching under oak tree or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So one of the best tips I ever got, it was from a buddy of mine, and he said, I've seen so many hunters, including seasoned turkey hunters, have been hunting for a while, that they get into, and this would probably, as far as like strictly calling goes, this would probably be I think the most important advice I could give somebody. It's really easy to fall into a habit of just calling at a turkey. And this is echoing off of what Jordan just said about painting a picture. Um, and this may sound goofy. All I can tell you is next time you go turkey hunting, try it, and you will see what I mean. What and calling at a turkey rather than calling to that particular turkey and legitimately trying to strike up a conversation with that bird. Everything changes when you do that. Like you're not just going, all right, now I'm going to throw this sequence at him. All right, now I'm going to yelp 4 times. All right, now I'm going to cluck twice and yelp. No, it's what's that turkey doing? Is he gobbling a lot? Is he gobbling at me? Do I think he has hens? I mean, it is trying to think about what that turkey's doing and then trying to emulate a whole different scenario over here that is enticing to him to make him come this way. Case in point, and I saw this question pop up somewhere, and it kind of falls in there. Wilbur always called it taking a turkey's temperature. And so, an example of calling at a turkey and not calling to a turkey is this morning. We had a great hunt this morning. Uh, the turkeys that we got on them on the roost, and when they hit the ground, I just start. I clucked at them a few times. I tree up twice. They answered both times. They hit the ground. When they hit the ground, I just plain yelped. I clucked twice and yelp, 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 yelp. 5 notes, plain yelp. 2 seconds later, pow. And could I have, thrown gas on the fire and started cutting like crazy and see if I could really fire them up? Sure. Could it have worked? Maybe. But that turkey was perfectly fine with my plain yelping. And so I didn't have to elevate it anymore. And then the next thing, when he gobbled, I pack, pack, yow, 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 and just kind of clucked and yelped right behind him, and he ate it up. And then the turkey came in, and Tyler, who's with us from Weatherby, shot him, and it was a fantastic hunt. But when you start thinking about calling to that turkey and trying to communicate directly with that turkey, it makes a huge difference rather than just throwing turkey noises at him and seeing what works. Let's see. Are box calls easier than a slate? Uh, probably. I mean, just to simply get a turkey noise out of one, I would say yeah. The way they're building box calls today, I mean, you can just drag the lid across the surface and you're going to make a yelp. If you get into the nuances and different vocalizations, it takes some learning. Um, Jordan, do you still run that Tall Timber Gabriel all the time?
Yeah, I've got it right here. Hang on.
Uh, So this is I had folks asking about slates and stuff too. So pot and peg style call, slate call. Basically, again, this is basic stuff. Pot and peg striker on the surface where I've sanded it out, and it's just applying pressure and friction. And um, so yeah, and then Jordan's got the box call.
Yeah, so box call, it's just a hollowed out piece of wood with a lid on the top, and it's got a screw and a spring right there. It puts tension on the lid, and you put chalk on the lid, and sometimes I put chalk right here on the board, And what it does is causes friction and it creates a noise, which ends up imitating a turkey. But it's super easy to run. I mean, you just lay the lid. If it's a good call, it's got a spring in it where you don't have to like set tension on the lid. You just drag it across. Super easy to run. So that's one of my babies right here.
Yeah, that one. There's calls that you'll run into, or people that have calls that just pull a gobble out of a turkey when nothing else will, and that box call was one of those. Real quick, I heard someone asking about how to purr on a slate call. It is not difficult. To purr. I put the striker on the glass, and then I just pushed. I mean, I'm at an angle. I don't know if you can tell. I'm at an angle, and I'm dragging the striker across the surface, but I'm also pushing it at the same time. It's not. It's pretty easy to pull off. Um, I'm a hunting mentor, and I'm taking 3 new turkey hunters on their first hunts this year. I was going to go with push button. I think that's push button calls for all of them because it's easy to use. Would you recommend any other types of calls? I would. Not that there's anything wrong per se with the push button, but I would try to get them a simple mouth yelper or a box call or one of these more frequently used calls just because it gives them something to build off of. Now, if they want to use the push button because that's all they can do at the time, that's fine. But I would definitely try to equip them with one of the more frequently used styles.
You can't go wrong starting somebody with a push button or a box call. Like my little girl, she's 4, and we've been working on box call because it's so easy to use. You know, you just put the lid, you scrub it, you can get a noise out of it, and it doesn't take a lot of learning to learn how to get a yelping cadence out of it.
Um, when should I use a mouth call, box, or pop call? Is there a best tool for the job? It depends. That's the best answer I can give for that. Here's what I mean. There's definitely best use cases for them. So your friction style calls, your box calls, your pot calls, those are going to have more volume or the ability to have more volume than a mouth yelper can. And again, everybody's different. Like Jordan can get louder on his mouth call than I can. I can only get so loud with mine before it just sounds awful. But so if I'm walking around trying to strike a bird, if I'm trying to be loud, that would be a use case. I'd be like, yeah, that's a slate call, that's a box call, that's for me really trying to get some noise out there. Um, and again, if I have a turkey closing distance and I'm hunting and I'm by myself, that's a job for a mouth call because I don't want to be moving my hands around. That's one of the many that's why if someone were to ask me if I could only have one style of turkey call, I'm going with a mouth call every day of the week because I can be so versatile with it and I can call like I need to while I'm trying to run my shotgun. But they all can be like there's days where my slate call seems to be what a particular turkey likes, and I have to use that and finesse him. So I mean, there's use cases for all of them. But if I had to go two different, put them in two different buckets, friction calls, loud, can strike, mouth calls, versatile, can finesse, can run it without moving my hands. So there's that. How do you call to a gobbler when he's already with hens but continues to respond to my calls?
Call his
Hmm.
hands.
Call his hens.
That's your only play there. Get in front of where they're going.
Yeah, I mean you're not. I mean, I'm not gonna say you're never gonna call a turkey away from his hens. I mean, it does happen, but yeah, there's no like secret sauce to it. It's trying to get his hens interested or trying to figure out where they're going and play the
Yeah,
interception.
a lot of times if you're hunting open ground, you can see them and kind of figure out what direction they're going. But if you're hunting in heavily timbered forest like we do, if he's continuing to gobble or drum or his hens are yelping or if there's a jake in the bunch that's calking every once in a while, you can keep up with a flock of turkeys fairly well in really dense forest as long as you keep moving with them. Now, if you figure out they're leaving and you quit hearing them, well, you kind of got to stumble up on them if they're not gobbling, right? So uh, I tend to keep up with drumming as much as I can and kind of stay with them because a lot of times you can hear drumming a lot farther than you think you could.
Yeah, one of the things, and that made me think about it when you were talking about drumming, a just kind of a hot tip for calling that well, I mean, Jordan, you're honestly the first person I saw do it. I don't know where you learned it from, but uh, a way like one of, now, again, nothing that we're going to say is always going to work. There's just not how it goes. But a good tried and true method, if a turkey is close enough that you're hearing him drumming and he's not closing, um, again, Jordan was the first person I saw do it. He'd hear the drum, and then Jordan would answer that drum by yelping at it. He was soft yelping because, at that point the turkey's pretty close. You don't want to be just screaming at him, but we'd hear the boom, and then you just kind of just answering that drum. And I've seen that be the deal closer for a lot of gobblers.
Turkey drums the same reason he gobbles to attract hens or let him know he's in the area, right? So if you answer him his drum just like you would if he was gobbling, he's thinking, well, she's into me. She thinks I sound good or whatever it is. Well, however turkeys communicate.
Yeah, it's like the times that I've seen it work, it's almost like it puts them when it breaks them. It's like a different level of excitement. They're like you see them when you answer drum and they come. It's like they come out of strut and they just march in. You know. When you hear a gobbler, what's the first call that you should start with? It's very situational. Um, if I had to answer it, I would say 9 out of 10 times it's going to be a plain yelp, some sort of variation of that, typically. Um,
Start soft, and if that doesn't work, kind of work your way up the ladder to more aggressive. It's just I don't like starting aggressive from the get go. You want to work your way up to see what his temperature is, what he's feeling. I mean, sometimes that first no and that I mean, like get ready. But if it takes you cutting and yelping aggressively just to pull a gobble out of a turkey, I mean, yeah, you could get him fired up, but a lot of times you're gonna get ready to settle in for the long haul with that.
yeah, and sometimes you don't even like he'll gobble at you, but he's gonna gobble from wherever he is. He ain't coming over there. You just don't. You just don't know. Um, Midday turkey hunting. They seem to go dead silent. What tactics should I use to locate? Should I crow call midday? Jordan, I've been talking a lot. You want to take that one?
Oh man, it just depends on what your turkey's like. We've hunted quite a bit over the United States, and some turkeys are more partial to crows, and some of them are owls. Like here in Mississippi, I hardly, I mean, turkeys answer crows, of course, here, but I have a whole lot more luck owling all day long here than I do anything else to far as striking turkeys without using a turkey call. And usually it's not a full blown like owl sequence, the who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. It's just a sharp, just, and that's what I use to locate turkeys during the day. It's either or just a, but I'm doing that pretty loudly. And a lot of times, if a turkey's within 200 yards, they'll gobble at it if they're in the mood.
Yeah, it's so situational. Someone was asking about um, back to like vocalizations, and so I'm just gonna run through some calls real quick, talking about variations of yelping and everything. So um, this is Jeremiah asked this question. So this is what I would consider to be a plain yelp, and then a more excited yelp would be, or like an assembly type yelp. There's just a difference in volume, a difference in inflection. Plain yelp and assembly yelp is usually a little bit faster in cadence, but a plain yelp is kind of a more contented call, whereas an assembly yelp is a little bit more excited. Like you're trying to get your attention. They're saying, I'm over here. kind of thing. I would put assembly yelp and cutting kind of in the same bucket. Cutting's definitely a little bit more excited. Um, but again, and then
Assembly yelps usually 12 to 15 notes long too. It's a long drawn out yelp 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 yelp.
plain yelp is usually 5 to 8 notes, just yap 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 yap, or yap 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 yap. I mean, just shorter. And then um, cutting's just imagine just a cluck, and then you just kind of speed it up. Uh, and that is a cutting is about as excited a calling as it gets. And there's different variations to do it. It gets louder. You can do it on a mouth call. You can do it on a slate call. Um, but yeah, if I'm cutting, that's excited calling. That's when I'm getting quote aggressive with my calling. Again, it depends on. I can't think of a single situation where I would open up with cutting. I mean, if the turkey he's getting fired up, then I build up to that. But like this morning on that hunt where Tyler shot that turkey, I did not cut a single time. I clucked and I yelped, and that was it. It's a that you Jordan, you hit on it earlier. There's very few things that I would say I do this every time. But as far as building up, starting up from slow and then getting more excited if I need to, I pretty much do that every time. I don't always make it to getting excited because you don't have to, but that's the whole point of the build up. You kind of try to figure out where that turkey's at. Hope that answered the question, Jeremiah. How to call to a hung up gobbler. I've had several that hang up around 80 yards. Jordan?
If he's drumming, just soft answer is drumming. That a lot of times will help him feel more confident about himself coming on in. That's I mean that's really either that or shut up completely and make him come look for you. But if they're hanging up at 80 yards and you can see them, a lot of times if you get a turkey coming and he say gets just out of sight where he can't see where you're at, just quit calling completely. And a lot of times it'll make him like, where is she at? And then he'll walk around until he, a lot of times gets in range, hopefully. And that can kind of solve that problem a lot of times. A lot of times when they hang up, they're looking at where the calling's coming from and they can't see the hen. And they're just like, I'm not coming closer because I can't see you. You're not
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm. Um, how do you let's say how do you cluck on a mouth call? Okay. Uh, Clucking is like again, it's a short burst of air. Like when I was doing the bubble clucks earlier, it's essentially that, but it's just a little bit louder, a little more abrupt. There's a couple different ways to do it for sure, just like everything else. Um, One tried and true way, if you're figuring it out, a lot of folks would tell you not to do this, but I still kind of do it. Um, I use my lips sometimes. A lot of folks says that doesn't sound the best, but there's one way to do it, and it's and I'm just using my lips to do a little bitty short burst of air. Um, or you can do it. I mean, again, diaphragm call. You want all the air to come from down here in your diaphragm. Imagine if you were trying to blow hot air on a mirror to fog it up. That's where you want your air to come from, and you can do that with just instead of you can. I don't know why I did that. I guess just out of habit, but but yeah, you kind of get the idea. Do you ever try to drum with your voice when a gobbler is hung up? Yes.
It works about 1 out of 30 tries.
No, I definitely do try it. I've never had it spook a turkey. I will say that. Have I had it work a lot? No. Have I had it work enough to keep trying? Yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Tips on doing owl hoots with a mouth call. Um, so I'm assuming. So I've never. I mean, I don't know anyone that owl hoots with a diaphragm call. I know a lot of folks that owl hoot with natural voice, and then I also know a lot of folks that do actual owl calls.
I
Um,
think they'd be talking about the actual like tube uh, style mouth call you blow in for a hoot
yeah, I
tube,
would I
what
would
they call.
think so. A a lot of questions just about mouth yelpers. So Jordan, let's kind of tackle this one together. So just like basic, like if you're trying to get a sound out of this call, you basically again you kind of gotta again how it's different for everybody. You kind of got. I mean, you're gonna set the call on your tongue, and then you're basically gonna take your tongue and kind of push it up against the roof of your mouth, and you're pushing that air and forcing it over those reeds. And you kind of want to the starting point that Wilbur always told me is you want to just kind of fool around with it until you can blow air and get it to go and just make some kind of sound because then you're activating those reeds. If you can get to that point, then you start building on everything else. Um, but again, just positioning it in your mouth, make sure all the air is coming from down here on your diaphragm, and then you build from there. And it's not.
Also,
Yeah, go
wrong
ahead.
and right. There's a wrong and right way to put a mouth call in your mouth as well. So the cut, the 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 layer of latex or prophylactic that has the cut in it always goes to the top of your mouth. So underneath here, you can see, I think right there, there's different layers of latex in here. This is a 2.5 reed call, okay? Because you can see that one back here in the back, it only goes halfway down the opening. So there's two full reeds that come out. The blue one's a little bit thicker than the white ones, and the call always goes on top. I mean the actual cut. So that's how you put it in your mouth to be able to get the highs and lows.
Mhm. Yeah. Because like a Yelp, just like the fundamentals of a Yelp, if you when Jordan had that box call, it was probably like the best example. But like you were saying, there's with a Yelp, there's a high and a low. It starts
I'll
high
go
and ends low. Yeah.
here. It starts high and goes low.
So if what you see a lot of people do as far as like just really trying to nail down on realism is you'll normally it's one of two things. You'll hear people yelp and it's all high, or you'll hear people yelp and it's all low. And you want to find whether it's a diaphragm call, mouth call, a mouth call, a box call, a pot and peg call. You want to find a call where you can replicate that high to low. So Jordan was just doing that with a box call, and so doing that with the slate. Here's my high, and then you hear it, but high low, and then placing that together. Like again, if you're trying to learn how to use a pot and peg call, start slow. What I'm doing just to make that yelp sound, I'm putting pressure down at an angle, and I'm essentially drawing an oval. Like imagine drawing an egg. And if you do, I mean, you can do it slow when you're first starting how to figure it out, and then you just slowly speed it up till you hit the right cadence. Um, but yeah, that is just kind of building blocks. Mouth calls, box calls, friction. All those friction calls. The best thing you can do is just get in a room by yourself, get in your truck, and just get somewhere where you can call your heart out and not annoy your family to death. Because I mean that's just what it's going to take is just calling over and over and over again until you figure it out. Um, Look back at some of these questions. I'm trying to hit all of them, man, but they keep.
Mr. Carl says all I can do with a mouth call is spit all over the house. Tried for months. Uh, I did that too when I first started doing it. Just don't even try to yelp on your mouth call. Just put it in your mouth and just walk around, do whatever you want to do all day. Get comfortable with that being in your mouth. That is the absolute key to learning how not to like spit everywhere or whatever, is just getting comfortable with it being in your mouth because it is a foreign object, right? So you got to get used to it, just like riding a bike or whatever. You got to learn like how to be comfortable with it there.
Yeah. So you basically, when you have a mouth call, you have this metal frame, and then you have the reeds, and you have this tape. That tape, the function of it is it functions like a gasket. So you want to figure out how to put it in your mouth, and you can blow it, and you're not here because what I'm hearing when you say you're spitting all over the side of your house, you're losing air. That gasket's not functioning properly. So like what Jordan said, I mean, like a big part of the battle is just getting comfortable with having it in there and figuring out where it needs to sit in your mouth. And I'm telling you, my poor mother when I was growing up, and then I finally, when I was driving, my truck, the inside of my truck cab has heard more turkey yelps than all the public land turkeys in the world. I mean, I would blow the reeds out of calls, but that's what you have to do. It's figuring out the best methods for calling in all these different turkey situations y'all are asking about, and turkey yelping, figuring out turkey calling. It's the same thing. You can these types of things like we're doing tonight, they absolutely help. I hope that they're helpful, but nothing is ever going to replace just doing it. You just got to call. You got to call, and you got to get comfortable with it. You got to set up on turkeys and try to call them in and mess up and make mistakes and figure out, well, that didn't work, I need to try something else. That you just have to go through that process for to start getting more comfortable. Let's see. Per on a pot call, we did that. Scenarios for calling in hung up gobblers that appear to have no hens. I mean, just real quick. I mean, I think we touched on some of these already. I mean, you can try to get excited with them and amp them up, and then just go completely quiet. That's something that you can do. You can try jumping on top of their gobble with yelping. That sometimes can work. I mean, there's a million different things you can try. Jordan, if you have anything to add to that one.
One thing that I have noticed over the years of finding that, like, why in the world won't they come in? Because they're by themselves. We know they're by themselves. They're gobbling at you, whatever. Usually, what it ends up being is you're in a spot that they just don't want to be in. Now, if you find that turkey and he's by himself and he's gobbling, but he just won't commit and come in, try going quiet and making a loop and getting around the other side of him, maybe in a position where you know he wants to be, or he's been kind of. A lot of times in this situation, the turkey's gobbling out there. You call to him, he may come 50 yards closer, gobble at you. He's like, yeah, he's coming. And then 5 minutes later, he gobbles again right back in the same spot he was in, right? That happens all the time. Well, it's usually because he's not either familiar with where you're at, or he just does not like coming up in there. It may be a little thick, or it may be a little brushy for him to walk across. Who knows? It may be a crawfish hole that he doesn't want to walk across. They're kind of temperamental sometimes, but a lot of times it will work if you make a loop around. Make a big enough loop where you're not going to spook the turkey and come around the other side of him, and it sometimes works. So that's a way to kind of beat that. I mean, it's just a scenario deal.
Um, this is a question that I'm surprised I didn't get to it sooner, but Jordan, you and I both can talk on this one. It says, can you go over different hand positions and their effect when using a mouth call? I actually, like going back to the hunt this morning, I was talking to Tyler and say that, like directional calling, some people say, like that is a very underutilized tool. Case in point, where we were at this morning on the river, we were in a lot of big timber, and it was more open than I was comfortable with and trying to call a turkey in. We didn't have a decoy or anything. It was just, us and some yelpers and a turkey. And so what I was doing when I was calling is we're say sitting this way and the turkey's gobbling this direction. I was doing my hand like this, trying to throw my sound to the right. And the reason that I was doing that is that's where the thickest woods were. And then if he were to pop out on this little dim road, rather than me throwing my sound directly at him, hoping he's not going to walk out into that opening and just look directly down that road and go, "Where's that hen?" Because I mean, their turkeys use their ears a lot, and they have really good ears. And so that turkey, he showed up, he popped up in that road, and he strutted. And the whole time he strutted down that road, he was constantly looking to the right, the sound where I was throwing the call. So that is a extremely powerful thing you can do when trying to call a turkey in is throwing the sound whichever direction is advantageous to you.
Yeah, Lake and I had that same situation in Florida happen with us this year. We were yelping at a turkey out in front of us. There's actually a couple of them. And then all of a sudden, a turkey gobbled straight behind us. And he gobbled again, and he was like, I was facing like at the computer here. Well, he gobbled like back here. And Lake and I can shoot this way. So he's like the absolute wrong direction. Well, Lake cupped his hand and casted his yelps back over here to where our left, where we could swing and shoot as right-handers, and the turkey ended up coming back behind us, and we got spun around the tree. But at the same time, he went to the left, and Lake was able to kill him. So it works.
It absolutely works, and that's, I mean, it's one of those advantages that you don't know you have until you try it. Because I mean, if you think about it, if you're sitting there just yelping, you're throwing your sound whatever direction you're facing, and I mean sometimes that's the right direction. But if you have the ability to send the sound a certain way, it has an effect for sure. Hunting birds that get called to a lot. How often do you call? Man, again, I that's that's hard for me to put just a call answer on that. I would say again, hammer down on realism, hammer down on not throwing the same cadence at him time after time after time, and think about heavily where you're calling from. Uh, that's a big one.
Yeah, setup and turkeys they get hunted a lot. Setup's usually what wins that battle because you come in from a different angle or somewhere where they're used to hearing real turkeys and not hunter turkeys. That's usually what wins that deal. And I mean, be conservative on yelping, especially to start with.
Mhm. Do you use gobble calls ever? Uh, I mean, this is me. I can't speak for Jordan. I'm not saying I don't use them, but it's rare. I don't even think I carry one with me anymore.
Yeah,
Like a gobble tube or something.
I just never have. I guess seen them work. I mean, they do absolutely work. I just never have used it enough to be in a position where I needed it.
Can you talk about conditioning, pot calls, and strikers? Yes, yes, we can. So conditioning, something that you absolutely have to do in reference to friction calls. Jordan talked on earlier with the box call, chalk, with a pot and peg style call, like this particular one that my buddy Nick Andrews made for me. It's got a crystal surface on it that I managed to figure out how to crack. But this is called a slick stick. Primo's makes it, and it has these rough surfaces on it, and you just scratch up the surface, and you have to do this every so often. Some people use sandpaper, that's fine too. And then this particular call is Brad always referred to it as Pennsylvania slate, but you just get kind of one of these Brillo pads and rough it up. But yeah, conditioning. It's one of those things. Have had folks that they had the misconception that you condition the call one time when you buy it, and then you're off to the races. I mean, you're going to have a really crummy sounding call if you do that. That's something you have to do fairly frequently while you're using them.
And an important part of conditioning a glass call or crystal call, whatever you want to call it, uh, if you can see on here, I don't know if it'll focus in, but I've been conditioning this call one direction, back and forth like this, and it's
Yep.
the same scenario as like cutting meat across the grain. Because I set this up where I'm holding it like this, right, and I'm yelping from here to here. If you right there, I'm going down, up and down, up and down, and if you condition them in a circle, or if I go up and down with my conditioner, I'm not gonna get as much surface. I guess what's the word for it? Constriction or restriction or whatever. I'm not gonna get as good as clean as Yelps if I'm not going across the grain on my conditioning.
Yeah. Straight up pot call. I'm only scrolling through these questions because some of these are iterations of question we've already asked. Jordan, you got that ghost cut handy?
Mm-hmm.
Do a kiki. People are asking about a kiki.
Let me see if I can do one. I read, but all I'm doing to do that is I'm applying an extreme amount of tongue pressure against the call, and it's just like if you've ever taken a balloon with full of air and you take the neck of it while it's not tied up and you squeeze it and let the air out, it'll go high to low, high to low. It's the same way with a mouth yelper. The more pressure you put on those reeds with your tongue, the higher pitched noise you're going to get out of it. And that's what I do when I kiki is I put extreme amount of pressure on my tongue against the reed on the call and just blow out of my chest through it. And it's higher pitched, and I control that up and down movement with lowering or raising my tongue. See, I'm lowering my tongue to get that yelp at the end.
um, just a few quick ones. We're getting close to wrapping it up here. I think they're going to start throwing the giveaway links in the chat here soon. But I'm trying. I am trying my best to hit all of these guys. I'm sorry, we're not going to make it to all of them, but we're trying to. Can you talk about cadence? I have a buddy that's always telling me my calls are good, but I have no cadence. Um, cadence is very important. Cadence is you can have the best tone Yelp in the world, but if your cadence isn't right, it's not you're not hitting that level of realism that that you're wanting to hit. And so again, cadence comes from I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. Listening to real hens, like that's. I mean, I cannot emphasize that enough. If you want to become a better caller, listen to real hens. Another thing you can do is next time you go watch your favorite turkey hunting YouTube video, and presuming the guy's a good caller, rather than just watching it for the entertainment value, pay attention to what that guy is doing. Pay attention to how he's sounding. I'm not saying to imitate that guy, but I mean, you can learn a lot by listening to people that know how to call really well. Mm. All right, first giveaway link is in the chat box. I think how many have we done? There's two in there so far. So guys, I'm assuming a lot of y'all are here because y'all want a chance at winning that stuff. So those links are in there. I'm going to give y'all ample time to click on those links. But again, if you want a shot at winning some of these awesome giveaway items, like I know um, we're giving away awesome prizes, and that's the way that you have to win. So the link is in the chat box right now. Again, there's another one. Click on the giveaways. I want everyone to get a chance at winning this stuff. And while you are doing that, we'll go ahead and tackle a few more questions before we have to wrap this up. Um, okay, this is a long one. Woodsmanship works great, but I've had turkeys come in so close in the case, two of them, I could not move to shoot them. They both came in silent in my response to my calls, and they were just out there. They were just there out of the blue. One behind me that gobbled so loud I nearly jumped out of my skin. Been there. I could not do anything. I still wonder how close he was. One was less than 10 feet away, and my flintlock shotgun. Mark coming in hot with the flintlock shotgun. Pointed too high to shoot, moved about a quarter inch. Their woodsmanship was better than mine. How do you prevent this, man? So I guess the premise of the question is how do you prevent a turkey coming in some wonky way? I would say, and Jordan, feel free to weigh in on this too. There are things that you can do when setting up to prevent turkeys coming in from a weird direction. But at the end of the day, a turkey's going to be a turkey. Like there's not a thing in the world you can do to be like, all right, they're not going to get me anymore. like they're gonna tie you in a knot. That's what they do.
Usually, when I sit down, I look around and it's like, okay, what is the worst possible way this turkey could come in here? and that's usually the way I face. They'll do it. They'll tie you in a knot.
We actually had a youth hunter. We were hunting the Mississippi youth season. It was myself, Aaron Warbritton, and Keith Polk, and then the youth Cooper. And we ended up calling these turkeys up, and they showed up like directly off of Cooper's left shoulder. I mean, like right here, and he just couldn't get turned on them, and you could tell he was like excited because the hunt was exciting, but he was a little bit disappointed because he didn't get the shot off. And I told him, I said, Cooper, if you go and tell that story of what those turkeys did to anybody that's turkey hunted for any length of time, and you tell them those turkeys showed up in a spot you didn't want them to, no one's going to go, man, that just doesn't sound like a turkey. They don't do that. They're going to go, yeah, that sounds about right. That's what they do. I mean, that's just kind of what they do. All right, what do you think, Jordan? Do one more. I'm trying to find a good one.
I see one right here. Is when you get access to a new property for the first time, how do you approach it? When
That's a
is
good.
when do you when you get first boots on the ground? What are you looking for? Creek bottoms, ridges, water, what? Uh, Man, I honestly, this is not a shameless plug, but the first thing I'm going to do is start looking at topo maps on onX and trying to figure out where the pinches are and saddles and like where I think a turkey would utilize without ever seeing the place, and then go look at those places.
Yeah, yeah. It really like do a lot of dissecting. I mean, again, I was a onX user for years before I worked for onX, and so likewise, like the first time I get access to a place, I'm studying it. I'm looking for creek drainages. I'm looking for habitat transitions. I'm looking for openings. I'm just all those things to key in on. That way, I kind of have some sort of educated guess on where to start the first time I actually go hunt there or go listen or whatever I'm doing. So, all right, guys, one more. Like the chat is turned off temporarily, so you don't lose the link. But again, if you have not clicked that link to sign up for the giveaways, do that so you have a chance to win. Okay, guys, I greatly apologize. I would love to have answered all of these questions, but we would be here for 4 more hours. They just y'all asked a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. Again, this whole thing is going to be available on the onX website. Appreciate y'all staying and hanging on. Like most of y'all stayed on for the entire time. That's awesome. I'm glad that y'all did that. Hopefully y'all got something out of this. And again, um, feel free to look at the rest of our masterclass archive. And yeah, good luck this spring. We'll see y'all next time.
Have a good one.